And for me, last year alone, I lost two
Oh,
pregnancies, which I couldn't speak about in work. And when I did, I was shamed. I was told I went and got bereavement counseling too early after losing my child. So, can you imagine the impact of that if you're not a strong person or if you don't have support or a safe
yeah,
space to discuss that with somebody who loves and cares for you? And
yeah,
thank God I have a husband
yeah.
who is Irish himself,
Mhm,
but hate injustices and
mhm,
understands me and can sit and listen and encourage me. And
mhm,
also I have other people around me, like my family. Mind you, I I wasn't even ready to tell my workplace last year that I was pregnant, and I was forced to because they were putting me in COVID areas without informing me there
mhm,
were COVID in the areas.
mhm,
And so I had to outline to them why I couldn't go into these COVID areas.
mhm,
I wanted to keep it a little longer to myself. Traditionally, in my country, you don't tell a person you're pregnant until 3 months after.
mhm,
So I wanted to keep it to myself. I know by law you must say it,
mhm,
but I wanted to make sure everything was fine, everything was doing okay. But I had to tell them the circumstances why I couldn't be put in certain areas. And instead of hearing me out, they just sent me to different places and said, okay, you got to do this anyways. So that brought on a lot of stress. Within a couple
mhm.
of weeks of all those stressors, baby was gone.
I'm so
And it's
sorry.
funny because nobody, not even one person in my workplace, and mark you at the time I worked with only women, not even one person said to me they were sorry or
Oh,
showed any form of empathy. And it's funny because I was out of work for three about about 2 months, nearly 2 months
mhm,
to recuperate and
yeah,
get over it a bit.
yeah,
And the first day I went back to work, one of
mm,
my co-workers who don't even talk to me on a daily,
mhm.
she said, "Your baby's gone, aren't you? You're not pregnant anymore, are you?" I was floored. I went straight to the toilet and I just sat there and sobbed because how insensitive can one be, you know?
Mm,
And I battled with that for months.
mm,
And then in August, we found out we were pregnant naturally because I went to IVF for the other pregnancies that we lost to.
oh,
And
mhm,
this one happened naturally, how good God is. And
mm,
a couple weeks again, gone. Because all the thoughts and all the feelings and all the things kept coming back to me again. And I'm saying to
mm,
myself, oh my God, how do I do this and still be working? Do I step off work? And then
mm,
on. And I realized that it's internalized hurt,
yeah,
pain, trauma. So
yeah,
my body can't fully function the way it should
mm,
to be pregnant fully until I
yeah,
deal with these.
yeah. I'm
But
so,
God has
so
been good.
sorry. I'm so, so
Amen.
sorry.
It
Honestly, I'm so sorry for your losses.
Thank you so much. It
Yeah.
happened very
And have you been able to get help, like therapy, since
Yes,
you lost the
yes,
babies?
I did.
Good.
Well, the
Yeah.
hospital was gracious enough to give us because I was admitted the first week.
Hmm. Yeah.
So they gave us some bereavement counseling,
Good.
and I've been able to get other counseling along the way,
Yeah.
another therapy
Good.
along the way. So, and my husband
Yeah.
as well. So it's been
Yeah.
amazing,
Well
to
done.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to normalize getting support when we lose even babies, even fetuses, because I think oftentimes for a lot of Black people, it doesn't matter where in the world you are, Black people always talk about being strong. This is why we sing and dance at funerals in Africa. Like, like I am still, and I get it, sometimes we're celebrating the life if somebody is an older person, but oftentimes I'm convinced that we're trying to ignore the grief. We're trying to ignore the pain. I had a relative a few years ago that lost a baby, and people, I was disgusted by the comments during we do these kind of meetings before the funeral, and people encourage the person, and there was a lot of like, oh, don't worry, you're young, you can just try some more, and you'll have more babies. And there was a lot of like dismissive, um cliched, I can't even think of what, like one-liners where people were just dismissing feelings. And loss is loss, and grief is so deep, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm just so proud of you for getting the help. And thank you for sharing that with us.
I am so blessed. I am so
Yeah,
blessed. I have one son
yeah,
who's alive and well, and I'm
yeah.
so thankful to God for him. He's now 25 years old, and people are like,
Wow.
"Oh, you still want to have a baby?" As long as it's the will of God, I am here and
Hmm.
I'm ready. Age doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Ah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
there's lots of kind people along the way. Yes, I've met a few people that not so nice, but there were lots of kind people along the way.
Awesome.
It's
So
so
you mentioned your husband. So you're in an interracial marriage. What has that been like? How long have you guys been
we
married?
we we met in 2014 and
Yeah.
we got married in 2017. So
Oh,
we've been married now for 6 years plus.
oh,
It's
congratulations.
been an amazing journey, amazing journey. Have been challenges, as I've said,
Yeah.
when you
Losing a
go
baby.
through
Yeah.
a process like IVF, trying to have a child and the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs, and you know, it's it can be chaotic and it can take a toll on your marriage. Or
Mhm.
I lost my mother since we've
Yeah.
been married as well. So it hasn't been like all
Okay.
plain sailing. But
Mhm.
we often are grounded. We're grounded in the
Yeah.
sense that we know the foundation. I know the foundation of our marriage is
I
God.
know you said he's pro justice, and how has he supported you with any of the racism that you've gone through, and how has his family embraced you um in your marriage?
Well, for my husband's family, oh, they love me.
Oh,
When
good.
I met his parents initially, actually I met his mother first
Yeah.
because one night after a date night, I dropped him at the house and she decided that I wasn't leaving until she even touched me and say hi because
Oh.
my husband kept telling her good things.
Mhm.
So I did meet her first, and my my first invitation to dinner was a couple of days before my one of my birthdays, and we had
Oh.
a lovely dinner and my son was there and everything. They
Yeah.
embraced me. It's not that I haven't had a few talks about racism and stuff that I've gone through as in my career, especially because that's where I
Mhm.
meet most of the people on a daily basis.
Mhm.
We've talked about these topics, and
Mhm.
to them it's shocking.
Yeah.
They've never heard anybody who's so outspoken. And at one time, I
Mhm.
thought, I think one of them said to me, Caroline, are you sure you're not the problem? Like, I'm like, okay. I've heard this before, and I'm going to answer you perfectly right now. I said,
So
if
what was your answer?
I said, if I was the problem, I would put my
Yeah,
hand up and I would
yeah,
say, listen, I am sorry.
yeah.
You have said something you didn't like, or probably I answered something you didn't like, or whatever. But I know deep down that I am not the problem.
Hmm.
System is the problem.
Yeah.
And the culture of the system is the
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
And then the domino effect trickles down to the people, which then
Yeah.
makes the people the problem.
Yeah.
So, we've had very strong conversations with
Hmm.
my husband's family
Yeah.
because they are still realizing that nothing has changed from they heard about the slogan, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
No. Yeah.
They've realized that nothing much has changed.
Yeah.
And I remember one time Simon's father did mention to me that when he was in the UK,
Yeah.
he lived there for a period of time. Actually, my
Hmm.
husband Simon, he was born in the UK, but all his
Okay.
life was here in Ireland. Like he grew up
Hmm.
here in Ireland. But
Yeah.
he told me, Caroline, I experienced some of these things you're talking about because I was looking as a negative because I was
Hmm.
Irish. So I said, okay, now you understand. Would you consider that you were the problem?
Hmm.
Or was it the people who were being racist towards you or treating you indifferently the problem? Or the
Hmm.
system? Was it the
Yeah.
system was the problem? You know?
Hmm.
So we've had tough conversations,
I
but they've
love that.
embraced me. They've embraced me and they love me, and especially Simon's mother, she treats me like a queen. I'll go down
Oh,
there,
I love that.
stay in bed until 12 o'clock, and I'll come downstairs and she'll say to me, Curly, I have something there ready for you. She has some
Oh.
breakfast or something. The last time I was down there, I think I came home with 3 big roses from her garden that she
Oh.
gave me. So, I mean, they're always very kind and nice
Good.
towards me. And I'm so grateful for that because in a
Good.
lot of mixed families, you don't have that. And to top it off, Simon has a massive amount of friends that he grew up with, and he's still friends with these people right now, and
Yeah.
they embrace me too. We
Yeah.
can go out and I'll be sitting there with everyone laughing and chatting, you know.
Yeah.
So any negativity that I've encountered is outside of that unit,
Oh,
you
I
know.
love that. I
Outside.
love that for you.
I'm
I,
really, I'm really so blessed, and I'm so
yeah, I love that. Because I think it's important. Racism in the workplace and racism on the street, you can almost, they still affect our mental health. But when racism comes home,
family. Oh,
when it comes from family, like, you know, yeah, I, so when I see another sister, that's in an interracial marriage and they haven't had to deal with the shit that I've had to deal with, sorry, I'm having a very emotional day. Um, I just get very, I'm happy for you genuinely. And I pray that you never have to experience any of that. And because it hurts differently, especially when kids are involved. Yeah, it hits differently. So I really love that. And I love that his friends have embraced you. And because that's so important. So
yeah.
important.
One day, I think somebody saw me on Facebook that I posted that I went somewhere, and the person said, and wrote on Facebook, "Oh, you're traveling a lot now because you're married to a white man, your husband." And I'm like, wow.
Was this a black person or a white
Yes,
person?
yes. And then I was like, oh, so
Which
did they
one? Black?
a black person? So I said, did they not see me traveling all along before my husband even came along? And do
Let's
they
talk
not
about this.
realize? Do they not realize that I've traveled even more than my husband. And do they not
Yeah,
realize that a lot of the places my husband traveled to with me is because
it's
of
because of me.
I
Oh
just
my
had to laugh
goodness.
because people just tend to think all these stereotypes.
Yeah,
They come up with all these stereotypes
yeah,
and just make assumptions, you know,
yeah,
and it's laughable at times because
yeah,
if you take it to heart, where would you be like, you know?
yeah,
Or or
yeah,
or they would say, oh, she's a show off, or something, you know, and it's a lot of it is coming from our own Black women, which is sad because
yeah,
if you don't understand something or you don't know something, just leave it alone. Don't
yeah.
embarrass yourself, you know?
I was having this conversation on TikTok about how, so I find when you're in an interracial marriage as a Black woman, you're gonna get opposition from two groups of people. It's, well, sometimes three, but mostly it's from white women who actually might not be interested in your husband, but because you are at the, at a lower, um, like, oh, there was this woman at the seminary, and when I was doing my master's, and oh my goodness, I have never seen someone so interested in my husband. And it was really funny. And she kept putting me down. Anytime we had a conversation, she would make comments about my accent. And she'd just be like, yeah, your accent is not Irish enough. And, I don't lie about being a Kenyan girl, right? I don't know what accent I have. It's Kenyan, it's Irish, it's Northern Irish, it's American, it's whatever. So she was constantly like picking on me and like all at the same time flirting with Tim and like being like, you know, and like touching him and stuff. And I was just like, and she probably would have never been interested in him, apart from me. And then Black men. So Black men come up with all sorts of stuff, and then I recently had somebody say to me, "Oh, your husband's white? Is it a love marriage?" Because I had to have married him for something else, like i.e. status or wealth. Like they don't know that when me and Tim got together, he was a student. I was working at the Mater Private. He was a poor student finishing up his degree, his undergraduate, you know, but people don't consider any of that. And then, like you said, Black women, especially if the Black woman believes that, oh, I had someone said to me, a Black woman, she was like, you're not the type of girl that white men go for. So
Mm.
then I said, um, what do you mean? And she was like, well, you're really dark and also you're not skinny. And this was from a Black woman. And for her, her dream is to meet a European guy. But I hear you. I hear the racism, like the,
You know, and it's funny because a lot of the people who outside of my safe space that will say something to me are very ignorant of what my relationship with my husband is, or
yeah,
very ignorant of what it is to have a relationship with a
yeah,
man who is white,
yeah,
right? Or quote unquote considered right, because my skin shade is darker, but
yeah,
a vast majority of my family is white.
yeah,
So, you know, I come from a country that's predominantly black or mixed, as
yeah,
you could say.
yeah,
But, you know, it's funny because they're like, what is it like married to a white man? Should I ask, what is it like having a grandfather who's great grandfather who's white? You
yeah,
know, it's so ignorant, it's so ignorant gestures and questions.
yeah,
But at the same point in time, it can build a conversation
yeah,
if you yourself is not doesn't show any aggression,
yeah,
but
yeah,
is a good listener, or how would I say, is a deliberate listener.
yeah, yeah,
Then you can teach them, and then you can open their eyes to something different or something new. Because I never ever thought in all my life that my husband would be a white man,
Mhm.
right? But he
Mhm.
is, and
Mhm.
and I love him. And okay, yes, he's white, but quote unquote, quote, it has nothing to do with his whiteness why I love him.
Yeah.
And people look at me as, oh, you must want something. What do I want?
Like,
So in my case, I've heard people say a lot of negative things, which is weird because, as I say, outside of my safe space, a lot of negative things just because my husband is white.
mhm,
But my husband loves me just the same way that I am black.
mhm,
I do make lots more money than my husband in my career. I don't
mhm,
hold it over his head. I love him
mhm,
just the same. I
mhm,
am way more educated than my husband, who is white. I don't hold it over his head. I love him just the same.
mhm,
So, it's, my husband come from a background where he had a lot of privileges. Yes,
mhm,
I have lots of privileges too. You
mhm,
know, I have in my country, we don't pay a mortgage for years.
mhm,
Well, my parents did, but we also have ownership of lands and
yeah,
whatever, vast amount.
yeah,
Whereas people in Europe might just own the house and the land,
yeah,
that little land, this
yeah,
garden, but we can
yeah,
have fields upon fields. And
yeah,
I consider myself blessed and privileged from where I come from in my
mhm,
country, my little country,
yeah,
Jamaica. And apparently, when my husband went to my home in Jamaica for the very first time, he was shocked because
it's
the
so nice.
concept, not that he thought of it, but there's this concept in a lot of Europeans' head
Yeah,
that we live in little small
huts.
confined spaces.
Yeah,
The shock of the vast amount of space we have. We
yeah,
can go for long walks, hold hands,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, admire nature on our property.
yeah,
We can drive the vehicle around the house. It's not a
yeah,
problem. But it's just the mindset of
yeah.
people sometimes to think, okay, hmm, they
But
must be very poor to come into my country.
yeah,
Why do they come to my country? They must be extremely poor.
yeah,
It's so sad.
yeah. And that all stems from white supremacy, and when we talk about white supremacy, we're not talking about like the people who are white. It's the construction of race, first of all, which started in America and to justify slavery. And this, like, you were talking about, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. Irish people for the longest time were not even considered white.
Of course, yeah.
They were indentured servants, for a
And
long
slaves.
time, and
And
slaves and
slaves.
sent to Jamaica and sent to other
Oh yeah.
places for
Oh
a
yeah.
really, really long time. They were not considered white. But because the people who were considered white, in the higher up on the chain, when they realized that the black people and the poorer white people was starting to come together, they constructed the race thing. And all of a sudden, Irish people and Italian people were considered to be white. So when we talk about white supremacy, that's what we're talking about. Because people are like, well, no, we're talking about this idea that first of all, that there are many races, when science has shown that the genetic difference between a black person and a white person is actually um it is oh oh sorry, the genetic difference between a black person and a white person is actually sometimes smaller than the genetic difference between two black people. So like Yeah, so for me, that all stems from this idea of there's one race that's better. There isn't. It was a lie that we were fed. Black people have even believed it. That's why you can hear on TikTok a whole group of women, they couldn't have been younger than 30 or 40. And they were all saying, oh, white men are this, white men are that. It's internalized racism,
Yes.
internalized, patriarchy
Oh, yes.
that they are living in. And I think I just love that we can now have these conversations and start to deconstruct and say, what are the lies that I was told?
Yes.
And face them, face on. and,
Yes.
and then, and process it and start to let go. And not just for Black women, but everybody. I think if we all just looked at what we were taught and start to kind of tear it apart, it's hard because our identity and our purpose and our perspective are all wrapped up in this, whatever we were told. But
Yes.
once we do that, the pain is real, trust me, as a
It's
deconstructing
real.
person.
It is
But it's
real.
so painful. There's so much
It is.
grief.
It is.
There's so much
You know,
grief.
Maureen, it's so funny that a lot of people do not realize that the whole thing about race is a social construct.
Construct. Yeah.
Keep one group of people up and it's one group of people down. It's like a superiority.
Yeah.
It's like putting people up on a pedestal and then another person is trampling on their feet.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this social construct is
Mhm.
in every facet of society. It's even in
Yeah.
the church. You spoke
Yeah. Oh,
about
girl.
you,
Girl.
you spoke about I think I read something the other day about you leaving the SDA and it's
Mhm.
so fascinating that when you even walk away from a group of people that do not make you feel happy or make you feel good about yourself, they still
Mhm.
have a problem with it and they still
Yeah.
question it as if
Yeah.
as a human being you can't make your own decisions.
Yeah.
And this social construct
Mhm.
is one of the things that is traumatizing a lot of us as human beings because we don't
Yeah.
see ourselves as one race. We
Yeah.
are one race.
Yeah.
We are only one race, one human race, and that's it. And until
That's it.
people kind of get that
Yeah.
in their head,
Yeah.
they will continue to say, oh, this race, oh, that
Yeah.
race, oh,
Yeah.
this Chinese, oh, that
Yeah.
this one, oh, that.
Yeah.
It's just
And
never ending.
yeah, and when we speak out about our injustices, and we're going to bring this to a close because I think we could talk forever.
Oh,
When we talk about, um, when we start speaking our injustices, we're not trying, and it's the same with feminism, right? We're not trying to go above white people. Right, because there's this fear that we're going to take over. My father-in-law used to say, "Black people are taking over white churches." No, we just want the right standing side by side because we were created
mm,
equal. I was not created for your knee to be on my neck.
no.
I wasn't. And it's the same with men. When we call out patriarchy, we're not saying that women are better than men. We're saying we want our rightful place beside our brothers because
Yes.
we were not created to be walked on or to be used and abused. That is not who we are. But I guess when somebody benefits from your oppression, they're going to have a problem when you're asking just to be treated equal. Equality seems like oppression for them. So, how would you like to end this? What would you like to tell us? What would you like us to take from all of this?
I would like the listeners to understand that we all need to build networks. You know, it's like a web. It's like a web. I truly believe that within this web, which I would consider the universe, the world, are people who are suffering, whether you're black, you're white, you're Chinese, you name it. Let us come together as a people and build this web consistently to support each other, to deal with all these traumas so that
Mhm.
we can become better people for
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah.
And also never to forget that you're never alone, ever. There's always somebody out there to support you. There's always somebody to help you. And it's
Mhm.
even a smile on your face can make somebody's day. So
Mhm.
even if you're having a bad day, try and make somebody's day.
Yeah.
Try love even when you feel like you're not loved.
Mhm.